Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, so as I was explaining, we have stress within the environment, which basically means anything from the environment, could be an individual, could be an event, could be a particular object that gives you anxiety, leading to stress. And once that stressor is basically leading for you to be stressed, there are two responses that you might get, which is either flight or fight. Okay, so when you,
Miss?
yeah.
Yeah, I can hear sort of like a wind when you're talking, so I don't quite hear you properly.
Okay, yeah, just give me a second.
Okay, miss.
Is it better now?
Yes, miss, I can hear you better.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I just gotta wait for the azan and then I'll continue. Okay. So, yeah, okay, talking about stress again. So, as I discussed, that we could have two responses to it, which could be the fight or flight. So, basically when a stressful event occurs that can trigger a fight or flight response, right? So that basically causes hormones such as adrenaline and your cortisol to surge through the body. Okay, and that is basically how stress affects you physically and psychologically. Looking at what the book says is stress is caused by two things: level of anxiety and your body's reaction to your thought processes. So it's both physiological and psychological. It's not just psychological, but it also depends on your biologically bodily responses to a certain stressor. Stress happens when we feel that we are not in control of the events in our lives and comes in many forms, both positive and negative, and can have many triggers and physiological responses. Many of life's demands can cause stress, particularly work. So all of the things can cause stress. They've given us an example, including studying. Stress is an inevitable part of life, but it is not purely negative phenomena. It can also result from intense joy or pleasure, as well as fear of anxiety. Researchers have coined the term eustress or beneficial stress. So stress that is actually beneficial, that motivates you, that makes you confident, that actually pushes you to work better, that is called eustress, because it means that it is positive stress. So do you sometimes stress about the nicer things in life? So like maybe wedding planning, marriage planning, going to an award ceremony. Now all of those things are nice things, right? But you still stress about them. So that is basically something that you will regard as eustress rather than distress. Distress is considered more negative compared to eustress, which is considered more positive to sort of a stress. Now we're looking at sources of stress. So sources of stress basically regard to what things can actually cause you stress, right? So there are a lot of things that can lead to stress, but they have mentioned the top five for us, and they have said that could include money, work, the economy, family responsibilities, and family responsibilities and relationships. So they are saying that there are many different ways of investigating the causes of sources of stress. One way is to investigate the environmental changes that cause stress. So if your environment changes, so if you even move from one place to another, even that will cause a lot of stress. So they're saying that all of these things are called stressors. Now work, money, work, economy, all of these are stressors because they are basically causing stress. So if anything and everything that will cause stress in your daily life is going to be regarded as a stressor. Moving on to the physiology and of stress and effects on health. So how is stress caused physiologically, like within your body, biologically, and how do you deal with it within your body, again biologically? So they are saying, so basically, so when you talk about stress in a physiological sense, you have to focus on this one term, which is called arousal. And arousal is generally when you feel aroused by something. Okay, aroused can be in a very positive sense, but also in a very negative sense. Aroused generally means that you are affected by something. Now you could be affected positively or negatively. When a person is aroused, they basically, their heart starts pacing faster, they have palpitating nerves, they have heavy breathing. All of those things are when you are aroused. So aroused is that you are showing, that you start showing your effect to something. Okay, so they are saying that the physiological model is primarily concerned with what happens within a person, usually as a response to stressors. Central to our understanding to the physiological basis of stress is the concept of arousal. Arousal refers to a general physiological state in which the sympathetic division of autonomic nervous system is activated. The function of the sympathetic division is to rouse the body to action, and it does so by activating a number of physiological mechanisms which produce or maintain alertness and energy. So understanding what the sympathetic division of autonomic nervous system is, that your basic nervous system are divided into two categories, two subsystems. The one of them is called SNS, which is called sympathetic nervous system, and the other one is called PNS, which is called parasympathetic nervous system. Now this is extra information that I am providing you in order for you to understand. So when you're talking about this autonomic nervous system, okay, so autonomic nervous system is your nerve system inside your body, basically. So all the nerves that your body is carrying from your brain to any part of your body, all of those nervous system come under this system. Uh, all of those nerves come under the system called the autonomic nervous system, which is called ANS. And within this autonomic nervous system, there's two parts. There's the SNS and then there's the PNS, which I just explained. So this SN, when you're talking about ANS holistically, what we know is that it basically is responsible for any of the physiological changes, because your nerves are the one that gets activated every single time you feel something. So even if it's something good that you're feeling, your nerves will get activated with each feeling, with each emotion. Your nerves will get activated and respond to your body in that way. So again, when you talk about fight or flight, even that is when your nervous system, when your nerves basically get activated and would fight a certain response, would draw back to, like, fight back to a certain response, combat a certain response. Even that is coming from the autonomic nervous system itself. So the SNS, when we talk about the sympathetic nervous system, that is basically used to release hormones. So it is used to release epinephrine, which is basically adrenaline, or cortisol. Now though both of these are basically hormones and they are released, they are called stress hormones as a whole. So we have all sorts of hormones. So we have oxytocin, which is basically a love hormone. We have dopamine, which is a happy hormone. Okay, so similarly for stress, we have cortisol and we have adrenaline. So the SNS is basically the part of the autonomic nervous system which is handling all of these hormones, that what is released and what is not released. Whereas on the other hand, when you're talking about the other one, when we're talking about the when we're talking about PNS, that is more towards emergencies and everything like that. Okay, but when we're talking about SNS, that is how your body will respond physiologically, how it's going to respond to a certain stressor, how it's going to act, what is it going to release. All of that is decided by the sympathetic division of autonomic nervous system, also known as the short form of SNS. So over in the book, when you look at it, it says the autonomic nervous system controls the internal organs. So we have autonomic nervous system is the ANS, which is the holistic system, okay, which includes the SNS as one part of it. So it controls the internal organs of the body and plays an essential role in keeping the body's internal environment stable. It also plays a major part in our emotional experience to external situations. The sympathetic division in our emergency system is our emergency system. It prepares the body. So that's what they're saying, that while the whole ANS is controlling your organs and it is controlling how each of these hormones, how blood, how everything inside your body is going to travel through the nerves. That is the that is the aim of the ANS, the autonomic nervous system. Whereas when reduce it to sympathetic nervous system, then we will understand that the role of sympathetic nervous system is just to prepare the body for a stressor and inform the body all the hormones that it will be releasing in response to the stressor. So fight and flight response comes under the system where this SNS, your sympathetic nervous system, is the one deciding whether you will fight a response or will you flight it, which is basically ignore it or let it take over you. Is this clear till now?
That's cool.
Can you repeat what you said? Did you say yes or no?
Yeah, I said yes.
Okay, great. So looking at the GAS model, okay, so GAS model 1936. So that basically gonna read it and then gonna explain it. So immediate responses to stressful or anxiety-provoking events generate a high level of arousal. The human stress response involves many components, as Celia's work portrayed. He observed that the long-term adaptation of stress followed the three-stage pattern, which he called the general adaptation syndrome. GS is a term describing the body's short-term and long-term reactions to adaptation and to stress in order to restore homeostasis. So basically that's basically contentedness. Okay, so the control of internal conditions. So basically to establish control again, you are basically the GS, which is the general adaptation syndrome. Let me just get back to it. Wait. So Celia suggested that there are three stages that lead to illness, linking stress and illness. He believed that stress results in depletion of physiological resources, lowering resistance to infection. So there, he is basically suggesting that there are three ways in which stress will actually start affecting you physiologically. Okay, so he is saying that there is a three-stage pattern which is called the general adaptation syndrome, and during this general adaptation syndrome, the body is undergoing short-term and long-term reactions. Okay, the body is undergoing respondents to stressors, which are short-term and both long-term, which basically establish a flow, a control in your system. Okay, so GAS is basically GAS basically includes processes that are used to establish control. However, going back to what GAS includes is, he suggested that these three stages, which GS includes, are actually helping you understand why a certain person has an illness, and once he has that illness, how is it related to physiological responses. Okay, so the three stages of serious GS are that alarm resistance and exhaustion. So once you have basically, he's saying that once you are responding to stress, you have to go through these three stages. Okay, so once you are responding to a stressor, and this an individual will always have to go through three stages. So the first one he's saying is alarm, which means like the fight or flight response. The stressor upsets the homeostasis of the body. The functions, homeostasis is basically control, okay, system. So they're saying that as soon as you adapt to a stressor, you respond to a stressor, you are alarmed, and that alarm situation causes your fight or flight response, and ultimately this fight or flight response ruins the control, ruins the system within your nervous system. Okay, so they say that the function of this stage is to prepare the body's resources. We might respond to narrowly missing so basically this is like just by the edge, in the sense that you are alarmed that okay, something might happen. Okay, you might be undergoing stress now, you might be in a situation where you are very 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 close to being stressed out, you are very close to a stressor. So this situation is basically alarming our body, it is alarming our nervous system, and helping it, not even helping, but alarming it enough to release stress hormones. Okay, then it is resistance, which basically means that the body adapts to the stressor and physiological arousal declines, but it is still above normal. This is the body fighting back and adjusting to the stress. So once you are alarmed of the stress and the stressor is released, and you have started releasing all of these hormonal sorry, not hormonal, but all of these physiological arousal and hormones, right? So once you start releasing all of this, there comes the stage of resistance, where you try to resist this feeling of stress. Okay, where you try to make your body realize that it's okay, and make your body used to it, and not really respond in such a high end way. And then comes the stage of exhaustion, where you are tired of the resistance, basically, where basically you have long term stress and that cannot be removed. That depression would be an example of this. And eventually the body's energies reserve, they become depleted. So every single thing that you have been putting into this, you don't have any of it anymore, starting with patience. Okay, so body's resources are basically ending at by this stage. So whenever we have whenever we are undergoing a stressful situation, we go through these three stages. Whereas by the time we reach the stage of exhaustion, that just means that we cannot resist this feeling of stress anymore, and we just give in to it, even if it's providing us with damage. Is that clear?
Yes, miss, it's clear.
Okay. Looking at the early symptoms, just the second paragraph of this is just generally explaining how GES model can actually help us understand the early symptoms of illnesses concerned with stress, long-term illnesses that are concerned with stress. You can read it, you'll understand it. Now, those were the sources of stress, okay, which are mostly merely physiological. Looking at the causes of stress, so now we know that how, where stress is basically originating. What we need to know is how is stress caused, okay? So when we are looking at the causes of stress, also at any point where you feel like that this is something that I don't need explanation with, or this is something that I understand on my own, you can stop me, okay? So there is no bound by there, okay? You can stop me if you feel the need that yes, I need to. Okay, so okay, yeah. So when they're talking about the causes of stress, and the one important cause of stress that they had rated in the top five as well was work. And there was a study done by Shandola, and it was a very longitudinal study, and that basically was studying whether CHD, which is basically a disease, it is a heart disease, it's called coronary heart disease, is that linked to the stress at work? Would people who have stress at work ultimately get CHD at some point in their life? That is what they wanted to study holistically. So looking at workplace stress, it is basically a result between the conflict of the demand. So basically, a conflict between the demands and what you can provide. Okay, and a good employee, as a good employee, you need to provide every single thing that that you have been demanded of. Okay, generally, it can be a damaging physical and emotional response. In general, the combination of high demands. So in general, so sorry, wait. Yeah, in general, the combination of high demands in a job and low amount of control over the situation can lead to stress. So these are the two stressors, I would say. So one stressor is that there are a lot of demands from you, and the other stressor is that you can't even control that. So if you have a business of your own, now that's something that you can actually control and run. But when you're working for someone, when you're working somewhere, then obviously you don't have control. You don't have enough control. You have minimalistic control. So again, that is something that needs. That is, that is out of your hands, and that is your stressor. Stress in the workplace might come from one single event or many sources. It can impact on both employers and employees alike. In 2001, the Higher Education Funding Council of England conducted a 3-year study of occupational stress. The main cause of stress identified were long hours, job security, particularly in relation to terms of employment, work relationships, access to resources, and communications. So all of these things were mentioned under why work could cause you stress. So all of these things were factors within work that might lead to stress. So stress at work is associated with an increased risk of CHD, but the reasons under this association remain unclear. Now, why is it associated? That is not clear yet. However, we see a pattern of yes, it being associated with it. So Shantola wanted to determine the biological and behavioral factors linking work stress to CHD. So while we did not have an answer for this, Shantola actually wanted to search an answer for this, that how is CHD related to work stress. So she basically analyzed data collected from the Whitehall the second study to investigate the following three questions. So, is the accumulation of work stress associated with the higher chances of developing CHD, which basically means the collective stress that you are getting out of a workplace? Will that mean the higher the stress? Will that mean the higher the chances of CHD? That's the first thing that she wanted to look for. Then the second thing is this association stronger among the working age population? So is it more effective towards the working age population? Are they more vulnerable to this? Like, for example, a working age population would mean that people my age, okay? So I'm 20 right now, just turned 20, right? So I wouldn't say I fall into the working age population, but let's say from 22 onwards till 40, right? So would this specific thing affect this particular working population more than maybe the dependent population? That was the second part. And looking at the third research question, basically says, does work stress affect CHD directly through neuroendocrine mechanisms or indirectly through behavioral risk factors? So we understand the first two research questions, pretty basic, pretty straightforward. But then when we look at this is more to do with the physiological responses rather than the psychological responses to stress. Just give me a second. Yeah, okay. So sorry about that. So when we are talking about this particular research question, they are basically saying that while you are talking about work stress affecting CHD, so is it affecting CHD? Like, is it causing CHD through physiological factors or behavioral factors? So when they are talking about physiological factors, they are talking about, again, the system that we were talking about when we were looking at homeostasis, right? So we were looking at whether the system in your body is maintained at a certain level, or are there disruptions continuously? So all of those things included in the physiological response to stress. So that is what they want to see, that what that is what she wanted to look at, that when you're looking at work stress affecting CHD, is it affecting CHD due to physiological responses, or is it affecting CHD due to behavioral responses? So is it clear till now as to what we're doing?
Yes, Miss. Miss, I have a tiny question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you say you just turned 20?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to, I wasn't sure if you actually like, but if that was just an example of that you actually saying that. Okay,
No, no, no.
that's all I wanted to know.
No, no. I actually realistically in real life just turned 20.
Happy birthday, Miss.
Okay, by just I mean like a month or two ago, but that's just for me, because if there's 12 months, after 6 months have passed, then I will say I've turned 20 officially. But thank you so much. That's so sweet. You actually stopped me for that. That's actually sweet.
Thank you. Yeah, the work by Shandola, this one is pretty much okay for me. It's
Okay.
just it's the life events that's because there's like
Oh,
over 40, and
fair.
then
Okay.
this one, especially for like questions that come under the stress category, the questions aren't very like the ones I've done have not been clear on what study I have to present.
Yeah, I
So
get that.
that's what I
So
have to look into more. Other than that, stress is fine. It's just the questions and like what I'm supposed to add. That's the question for me.
fair. Okay, so before I move ahead or start explaining, because you're saying it's pretty self-explanatory at this point, so do you have a question in mind, or a question that you were doing or came across that you like just have right now that you can send to me on WhatsApp?
Right now, no. Probably after the class finishes, I might be able to like search it up again.
Yeah, totally.
But I
So
remember getting marks for it, but not enough because I wasn't sure what to add. So I will find that question after the class.
totally, we can definitely discuss that question, that particular question that is frustrating you at this point. But besides that, right now, because you don't have the question, do you want me to go ahead with the explanation of life events, or because you're saying that
Yes,
it's
miss.
Okay, great. So again, looking at life events, so we're still looking at the causes of stress. So we already saw the sources where stress is coming from. Now we're just looking at what causes stress. Looking at life events by Holmes and Wright. So again, going to read then explain. So people use the word stress to describe a wide variety of situations, from your mobile phone ringing while you are busy on another task to the feelings associated with intense work overload or the death of a loved one. All of these will be included in stress. Okay, perhaps the most useful and widely accepted definition of stress is that it is a condition or feeling experienced when a person perceives that demands exceed the personal and social resources they are able to make use of. In other words, we feel stress when we feel things that are out of blah blah blah. So they're basically saying that stress, like while we take stress as a rather negative thing, it is not necessarily supposed to be that. Things as tiny as your phone ringing while you're busy with something else, or things as tiny as water dripping in your bathroom and you can't reach it till then, are stressful for you. Okay, so it doesn't always have to be a very negative thing, because the smallest of things can cause stress, and there are also positive things that can cause stress. So that's what they're trying to explain under this, that there will be positive things, like for example your wedding planning. Now that is something you are doing for a very positive thing, right? You're getting married, that's a very positive thing, but at the same time that might cause stress either. So we cannot always characterize stress as being this negative thing, or over your psychological system or anything like that. So that's what they're saying. So they're defining stress as something, you get stressed when you think things are not in your control. So even if it's as tiny as your phone ringing and you can't pick it up, now that's because it's not in your control, even that will stress you out. So when we are trying to define stress holistically, we will just go with the mere definition that when we talk about stress, that is everything that is not in your control, that is getting out of your control, and that might just stress you out a little bit. So looking at life events are defined as experiences that disrupt an individual's usual activities, causing a substantial change and readjustment. Examples of live events include marriage, divorce, illness or injury, and changing or losing a job. Lots of research into stress has focused on life events, or these basically they're talking about whether certain life events can also be considered as stressors. Okay, so obviously when we are in our day-to-day life, we have a lot of life events. We might get a new job, we might get fired, we might switch schools, we might move from one country to another. All of those things will be counted as life events, because it is a major change, it is a major shift in your life. And they are saying that these life events, these categorical life events, can they be stressors for a person? Okay, can they affect a person in a stressful way? So they are saying that mere life events that we might not even pay a lot of attention to, or we might not even consider that important, might just be the greatest stressors for a person. So that is exactly what they wanted to study, that amongst the live events that they were suggesting, which life event was the most stressful, or which life event could be considered as a stressor. So that is how they took a self report. And yeah, eventually we'll get there, but that is the basic idea. When investigating the causes and sources of stress, Holmes and Rahe looked at what makes a situation stressful. This is often called the stressful life event approach, or the engineering model. So basically, whenever you're stressed, you always try to find the originating reason for that stressful condition that you are in. Why are you stressed? Yes, you are stressed, that's one thing, but why are you stressed? That is exactly what Holmes and Rahe wanted to focus upon. I was literally on mute and I was speaking. I'm so sorry, I just realized I was on mute. um okay,
Oh,
yeah,
I
so I
thought
was
like you had to go somewhere by emergency, so that's why I like. didn't say anything either, but it's fine. You could just, repeat what you
It's
were
okay.
saying.
I'll repeat myself. So I was just explaining how Holmes and Rai would wanted to see if how why certain thing is causing stress. So if you have stress, that's one thing, but then why it's causing you stress, that is what they wanted to see, and they could correlated this relationship of why a person might have stress to life events. So they said that life events are the stressors in this scenario, and that is what they wanted to study. So they suggested that living through life events that were stressful could cause serious damage to an individual's health. One of their major findings was that stress generated by such events seemed to build up, whether on a particularly stressful period produced illness later, or depended on just blah 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 blah. What they're saying here is that you basically get stress. Again, they wanted to study whether it was connected to a life event that was causing you stress, and if it was, then would that ultimately maybe turn into a lifelong illness or something, psychological illness. It could probably turn into that. So that is also one factor that they're considering, that life events in itself can be such stressors that they might just follow you throughout a lifetime, even those life events might just end in a month or so, but they will still follow you through a lifetime because of the stress that they have been causing. So using medical case histories and interviews, they studied a large number of people who were suffering or had suffered from extreme stress. From this data, they developed a social readjustment scale which ranked life events according to how much stress they appeared to give people. Not every life event was the same. For example, going through a divorce or suffering bereavement was much more stressful very much more stressful than changing one's eating or sleeping habits. Using a sample of 394 patients, Holmes and Rahe were able to rank 43 life events on a scale, from those that caused more stress, which was death of a spouse, to those that caused the least stress, which was basically minor violations in law and Christmas. So basically, what they did was they took these 394 patients and they took self reports from these 394 patients, where they asked them that if you were to be going through, like, what do you think is the most stressful life event. So they had already had this scale, they already had a social readjustment scale, and they just wanted these participants to rate however much that they think this particular event would be stressful. So they already had a scale, and they basically, let's say we take the example of fire at work. So how many people rated this as eighth worst or third worst or the worst, or okay, the most stressful or the least stressful. And those are the mean value figures that have been given to you in the box beside it. So they basically took these self reports, and these self reports may help them understand what event was most stressful and what would be least stressful. So looking at the death of a spouse, so all the participants, which is why the mean value score is 100, all the participants rated this as the most stressful. That is why it is on the top. It is number one, it is most stressful. Leading to divorce, so 73 as a mean value, an average of 73 participants rated this as the second most stressful. So, and then going to 42 or 43, so 42 being Christmas, this was like one of the least causing, sorry, less causing stressor, okay. And looking at the last one, which was basically caused the least amount of stress, which was basically minor violations of the law. So they basically took these 394 patients and asked them to give them self reports so they can readjust this social scale that they had already formulated. And while they readjusted this social scale, they made this list of how stressful a certain event is according to this general population, and what is the least stressful event according to a general population. Is that clear?
Yeah, miss, it's clear.
Okay. Do you want to understand personality?
Yes, please, miss. Both of them together is where the disaster begins.
Yeah, okay, I get what you mean. that's that's pretty common. Okay, so looking at personality, we've got Friedman and Rosenman. So they believe that causes of stress come from the individual. So basically, I'm going to give you an overview of this, and that is going to make a lot of this clear. Okay, generally, they not even wanted to explore, but what they suggested was that you're dealing with a certain life event, or you're dealing with a certain activity, or you're dealing with a certain emotion, or you're dealing with a certain feeling, is what leads to stressors, and that is what leads to how you handle stress. And your dealing basically depends on your personality type. So there are actually three personality types over here. They've mentioned two. They've mentioned personality type A, and they've mentioned personality type B. There's also personality type X, which is basically a mixture of both of these. However, they're saying that people who lie in type A personality type, okay, they are generally highly competitive. They work fast. They have this strong desire to succeed. They like a lot of control. They're bossy, okay, and they are more prone to suffer stress. Why? Because if they have all of these characteristics, you can understand that these people would generally be more stressful. Why? Because they want to be successful in everything. They like to control everything. They are very competitive. All of these things will lead to more stress. Hence, all of these participants that are personality type A are more prone to stress. Similarly, when we talk about personality type B, these people are, let's say, a little more laid back. They are non-competitive. They don't really have a desire to succeed. They are generally lethargic, okay, and they do not enjoy any sort of responsibility or control. Hence, they are less prone to stress. Okay, so obviously, when you have such a laid back attitude, nothing would really stress you out. Nothing would really make you anxious. So that is exactly what they wanted to study, that when you talk about stress or when you talk about illnesses which are caused by stress, you need to focus on the type of personality the person falls in, because that is a major factor in how they will be dealing with it. So if someone from personality A is going through a life event of, let's say, being fired at work, they would be very highly effective because they want to succeed. They are competitive, and for them it would be really devastating, okay, and they would have more stressful responses to it. They would have more, maybe a stress, they would be more prone to an illness caused by this stress, okay. However, let's say from someone from personality type B is the one who is fired at work, they would actually be happy about it because they do not want to work. They do not have a desire to succeed. They do not enjoy control. They do not enjoy responsibility. So they would deal with it way, way, way better than someone from personality type A. Just give me a second. So sorry about that. Yeah. So I was giving the example of, let's say, if it was someone from personality type A and they were the ones who were fired from work, so they would not be prone to an illness because they would not be as stressful as someone from personality type A, right? So that is exactly what it means, that once you are under a stressful condition, okay, what matters is how you are basically dealing with it. And your dealing will be correlated with your personality type. So if you are from the personality type of personality A, then you would be more stressful about the little list of things. However, if you're from personality type B, you wouldn't care that much. And that ultimately leads to whether or not you would have ultimate uh, diseases, for illness diseases, or caused by stress, okay. So they are talking about this longitudinal study which had 3000 healthy men, and they have given the ages, that's all sample details, and they were assessed to determine their personality type and then followed up throughout the following 9 years. The men were split into two roughly equal groups depending on whether they were assessed as type A or type B. Over the course of the study, 70% of the 257 men who died were from type A group. People who are from type A are more susceptible to stress because of their behavior traits and are consequently more likely to suffer stress related illnesses such as CHD. So, what they're telling over here as well is that they had a longitudinal study of 3,000 men, and these 3,000 men were, they were divided into personality type A and type B, and then further studied for another 9 months and 9 years, sorry, 9 years. And throughout those 9 years, these people found out that people who were from the type A personality, they were just more likely to die because they were so sensitive and so prone and so vulnerable to stressful conditions because of the behavior traits that they had, because of their personality type, compared to type Bs who were not that susceptible to stress, who were not that susceptible to illnesses caused through stress. So they basically died through illnesses that were basically caused through stress, such as CHD itself. Is that clear?
Yes, this is clear.
Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Send me the question. I'll give you a detailed response for the sociology question. Tomorrow we have a class on sociology, not psychology. So again, we will discuss that question and maybe write it down as well. From the next psychology class, I'm going to do measures of stress. We're gonna cover stress and also start health promotion in the same class. Does that sound okay?
All right, miss. Yeah. I'll make sure to
Great.
send you the question by today.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being so cooperative
Okay.
and sticking throughout the 2 hours.